I'm Eddie Molesky. I'm the director of the Duke Center for International Development. I have to say, I'm really honored to be here. It's great to see this level of interest in these wonderful scholars. But I just want to say that I'm delighted to be here because my father was a Rotarian all his adult life, and so I grew up with the values of community, of service, and especially the understanding of the interaction between local and global, and those have in many ways inspired my choices in my life. So I just thank you for everything that you do, all of the Rotarians that are here. So I don't want to take much time away from these wonderful speakers, but I did want to do a few things to sort of tie their presentations together and to give you a sense of why I'm excited about what they're doing and what they're thinking is cutting edge from my view as the director of a Center for International Development. I think, so when you sort of look at the history of international development over time, infrastructure projects have long been a big part of international development. So historically, however, we were doing multi-million, multi-billion-dollar international development projects. And then eventually there came to a recognition that these were less successful, less effective, without undertaking governance and capacity reforms that went along with them. And so you saw in World Bank, in USAID programming, a growing interest in governance that helped mediate and make those infrastructure projects more impactful. I think what you're seeing here is what I would say to be like the third generation of infrastructure projects, which is a growing understanding that these big infrastructure projects require an understanding of transnationality and internationality and working together between countries. And that is because, as you can see, both of these projects are trying to deal with big transnational problems, and to some extent, contradictory transnational problems. Growing energy needs as the world population grows, as economic development increases, there's a growing demand for energy. Where are those energy resources going to come from? At the same time, we are all aware of the growing threat of climate change and environment. And so this requires an understanding that we need cooperation and harmony because these problems are crossing boundaries. They can't be dealt with within the context of one country. And so both of these projects are trying to deal. One, I think, Abadim's a little bit more successfully so far with the idea of bringing countries together to solve a problem. But Yared, that is his life's mission, is to figure out how to make this work and help countries to work together to solve these large problems. So the second thing I'll say about this, and it comes across in Abadim's work very clearly, but I suspect it's there as well, and I hope that you get some questions about this, is the role of public-private partnerships in this. In Abadim's role, private companies are playing a big role here in the contracting, and that's important because it's not just inspiring infrastructure, it's inspiring private sector development, and he says technology transfer and resources that will spill over and lead to larger impacts on development going forward. So I think that's really wonderful. And the final thing that I'll say about this is both of these papers illustrate why I am so excited about the DCID, the Duke Center for International Development's partnership with the Rotary International Peace Center, because you can see what they're bringing, the skills that these scholars are bringing to this research is an understanding of big infrastructure projects and the type of work that we do, public project appraisal, public-private partnerships, public finance management, governance and development, and combining that with a deep understanding of international relations and international peace. And as I said, that is necessary for development going forward. So I hope that this partnership continues for a long, long time because it's been so successful. Okay, with that, so now it comes for the interrogation, right? Okay, so yeah, so are you dutifully prepared? Yeah. Okay, and I know that there's questions in the audience and online. Abdime, let's get started. I wanted you had technology transfer up there as a bullet point, and I recognize that's very important to you because you want to make sure that this is not some neocolonialism that's going forward, that this isn't just Morocco helping out the UK, but that Morocco's benefiting from it too. And I wanted to give you a chance to expand on the types of technology transfer that are going to take place and why you're so excited about those in your own research.
Yeah, thank you. That's really a great and an important question. Too many claims were made that there is maybe a new colonialism, but the main difference that if I could tell, that colonialism, there is no freedom of choice, right? The country will not choose to be colonized by another country, while in partnership, both parts, they decided to engage in cooperation and partnership. In this case, like Morocco, as I mentioned, has one of the largest solar power plants in Ouarzazate region, Morocco. And that it is possible because of another partnership with Germany, with both public sector and private sector. Like they couldn't build this solar power plant in Morocco without that technology transfer. They have 4 of type of the solar power plants. One of them is thermal, 3 others, they are using dry mechanism of cooling, because the first one was using more water resources. And without, again, the technology transfer, they will use more water. And Morocco last year stated and declared officially a state of water emergency. So you could imagine trying to solve energy issue and then causing more harm on another source, which is water, as we see with Yared. It may create other conflicts, right? But thanks to that partnership, and which, as you said, it's cross-border partnership. So Morocco was able as well to benefit from that technology transfer. And the 3 other big solar plants are using a dry cooling system, so they are not causing any harm on the water side. As well as I said, when Morocco will reach 100% of its energy independency, of course, Morocco will consider exporting energy. Then this cable, the HVDC, and it is not new. It's also used with other projects in other parts of the world, including Southeast Asia. So I may elaborate more on that, but there is a paper, as you can see here, talk about those challenges, and a similar case that Australia, and this time is the inverse, the global north will export to the south. Australia will export electricity to Singapore using the same technology.
That's fascinating.
Yeah.
That's great. Okay, so Yard, I have a question for you. So as you sort of explain your work, and as I look at the abstract, you have a model in your mind of what this cooperation could look like, where we're headed. And so I was sort of interested in what sort of, to get that model in your head, what sort of work did you do on previous transboundary water relations to get an understanding of the possibilities that are available? What other programs did you look at?
Okay, thank you for the question. Yes, as you were mentioning in your beginning, this issue, I mean, transboundary water resources becoming an increasingly a problem following the climate change issue as well as population growth. So this problem is not one area problem, but it is almost all over the world where transboundary water resources are available. So I have looked at the experience of other countries and how those countries have managed to reach to reasonably cooperative manner of handling this type of resources. So I have looked at most popular cases like the Mekong River with China, with the Southeast Asian countries, and also the cooperation between Egypt and Sudan after the signing of the 1959 agreement. That is also has shown best experience of cooperation between 2 countries. If we look in depth, the 2 countries, Egypt and Sudan, after the signing of the 1959 agreement, they decided to work together so that they protect, manage the resource as well as cooperate in terms of operating of the infrastructure they have on those rivers. So they go to the extent that establishing a joint technical committee which has offices in both countries so that they can exchange information, and there is a transparency, and with that they build their trust among themselves. So now they work together to manage and utilize that resource. And when this issue comes up, they now approach as a team to argue with Ethiopia. So, but that their relationship shows good best example or a lesson for expanding the experience to such kind of trilateral cooperation among themselves.
I see. Can I just have like a tiny follow-up on this? So like the Mekong River Commission, so the downstream countries, Thailand, Vietnam, Cambodia, Laos, they actually created an international institution that allows them to negotiate these and monitor these things, and also to negotiate with China. So is this something you might imagine in your setting as well?
Yeah, I have also looked at that one. So with that based case study, I found out that until recently there was some challenges with exchanging information between upstream country China among with these countries. But nowadays they have recently signed an agreement to transparently share their hydrological and meteorological data so that they can ensure when and how much water is needed, so that to allow the flow of, to regulate the flow of the water. And the downstream countries, the Mekong Basin Commission, have also worked with other companies that provide technical support to how to observe in real time the water level in the upstream country, so that the exchange of information among these countries is validated, and they are cooperating on the basis of trust. Yeah.
Fantastic. So you can see both these presentations are really rich, lots of detail. So let me open this up to the audience. I, of course, have a billion questions, but I'll jump in only if the... let's see, we got one over here. Yeah.
Yeah, so my question is for Yared, and I'm asking it as somebody who's been involved for a long time in Middle East, building peace between Israelis and Palestinians through healthcare. Now we're doing this for Rotary. But my question is, people to people is I think, oftentimes when governments are at loggerheads, the building of people to people ties. So I'm wondering, Yared, in your case, you said you were going to try to influence opinion in, I guess, in Egypt and Sudan. And I'm just wondering, how do you do that or build, I guess, support for this dam in Ethiopia in the populations there, if, even in a case here where the governments may actually oppose what you're trying to do? Thanks.
Yeah, go ahead. Why don't you answer that one?
Okay, yeah. If I got your question correctly, so the people-to-people interaction among these countries I found it relevant because usually downstream countries and upstream country, both Egypt and Ethiopian side, the governments usually politicize this dam so that they are using it as political instrument. So if we really create shared vision among the peoples of these three countries, so that citizens will have a say in terms of supporting the negotiation to move forward and reach a mutually beneficial agreement that benefits all the countries. So that is the idea, to push the people-to-people interaction to create a shared vision in the region.
So let's see the next question. I want to make sure this question is for Abdudaim or a shared question. Yeah. Yeah, up there on the left-hand side, yeah.
Thank you both so much for sharing your wealth of knowledge with us. I'm really curious, you both mentioned cooperation and using energy projects as a way to build cooperation and peace between countries. I'm curious for your thoughts on how energy access, in particular, is used either for cooperation or division within your own countries. Are there issues about equity, about distribution, and about access to energy that your national governments need to think about from a peace perspective within the country on a national level?
Why don't you take that first?
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a great question. Thank you. In terms of energy access, it may be surprising, but Morocco has 100% energy access according to the World Bank. But we should be careful when we say energy access, because the most important thing in addition to that is energy affordability. Like being connected to the grid is not enough, but being able to pay your bills is the most important one. And so in our case, there is 100% energy access, and the government is working to have more energy affordability, and like especially in rural areas where people they use prepaid odometer, and, like which is different than urban areas, which is connected automatically and people they pay at the end, and this can give us a clear idea of economic situation and inequalities between rural and urbans. And not only Morocco, but I think all over the world should put more effort in reducing inequalities.
Yeah, thank you. So in terms of at national level energy access, yes, there is a significant difference between urban and rural population. Of the 55% population who don't have access to electricity, 95% of that is in rural areas. But parallelly, we see also the effort of governments to address this issue. For example, the Ethiopian government recently in 2019 launched the National Electrification Program to reach universal access to electricity throughout the country, 65% using grid and 35% using off-grid solutions. So in terms of the measures that are taken by the government to address energy issue all over the country, the effort is there. The problem is the capacity is limited in terms of government capacity to reach in those areas. Otherwise, in terms of energy equity, it's only the capacity that limits the government to go for other inaccessible communities. Otherwise, there is no issue, or I will not say 100%, but I'm confident to say that there is no significant factors like corruption or good governance or partiality in terms of providing access to energy. It's all mainly rely on the capacity of the government. So this initiative, the Grand Ethiopian Renaissance Dam, is one of the initiatives to achieve this national electrification program. Yeah.
Okay, so I understand that we have some questions from the Zoomers. John, you want to bring us?
Yeah. Given that both of your projects are transboundary and they involve energy and the control of energy and being able to turn it on or turn it off, who do you see as potential honest brokers external to your countries who can bring groups together and also enforce agreements or mechanisms to ensure that everyone plays fair?
Ooh, that is a great question. Yeah, okay.
Want me to go first?
Yeah, go ahead.
Sure,
Yeah.
sure. Well, if I understand well, the question is asking who is the main actor to make the peace happen, right? And according to my knowledge, my education at Duke and before, and my peace fellowship, I trust that it is a common responsibility, and it should be both top-down and bottom-up, from politicians, economists, private sector, civil society activists, peace fellows, and Rotarians, and from everyone who could contribute. And it's different from a context to another, of course. Like in our context in Morocco, it's mainly politicians and private sectors, and civil society is getting involved gradually. But I think that it's still responsibility of everyone to promote this cooperation, because peace will just make life miserable for everyone in both levels, individual and state level, and also geopolitical level.
Who would be the honest broker in your political setting?
Yeah, thank you. I share the Abdidem's view, but when it comes to transboundary related matters, I think the primary responsibility relies on those countries themselves in terms of the people and the government. However, international expertise as well as experiences also has value, and also in terms of enforcement of agreements that have reached based on scientific evidences. The international community as well as international government institutions could play a role to force or push the countries to abide by the agreements.
Can I just follow up here? So like, yeah, so like, so you talked about international institutions in general in the international community, and international organizations came up a little bit in your answer as part of a larger list, but like, which ones specifically, and which larger international countries in terms of like a third-party type of enforcement would you point to in terms of these ones?
So like in the case of Morocco, to make things concrete, it is mainly the political actors, and in addition to the popular will, because without popular will, people will oppose any political cooperation. And as you can see in Morocco and Algeria case, unfortunately, even the Morocco side is still open for cooperation, but the Algeria side, especially the political actors, not the popular actors, because peoples there and peoples in Morocco are somehow similar in terms of culture, religion, language, and even geographical paysage of both countries. But the political actor in Algeria is insisting of not having any sort of cooperation with Morocco. So it's easily stated that the political actors, but also even if we have political actor, top management, I mean, and top like presidential actor, even if they have the will, the popular will should exist as well. So both of them, they should be there, in addition to the private sector.
Yeah, in the case of the issues that I'm raising, the Grand Ethiopian Renaissance Dam, it has been exercised so far. I mean, regional level organizations like the African Union, as well as international level organizations like the UN, has been almost directly involved in these processes. So these organizations, as well as other development partners who can support these countries in terms of alleviating their root cause of this problem, should be and also be part of these negotiation processes.
Okay. Two more. Okay, one more. Okay. Why don't we go straight up the middle here in the pink and black and gray shirt right there? Yeah. Yeah. Right. Like 1, 2. Yeah. Oh, okay. All right. Okay. All right. Okay. This is the last question. Yeah.
You've been talking at very high level and generalities. We can see the big picture, both of you. How do you see yourselves involved in roles to make this happen? Because we can say this, and the technology is there, and it can all work. How do you see yourselves involved in making those two things happen?
Yarj, you want to go first?
Yeah, okay, thank you. Yeah. An interesting question. As I tried to mention in the what can we do about this part, I see myself, at least for now, as promoting, increasing the awareness of communities in those countries through the benefits of cooperation. So how can we do that? While I was working for this paper, I have been interviewing with scholars and experts working on this issue from these 3 countries, in Sudan, Egypt, and Ethiopia. So apart from the interview or information that I have been collecting from them, I have been also trying to make networking with them. They have their own different initiatives in terms of thinking towards this angle. It means working on the nations of these countries to raise the awareness of the benefits of cooperation. So I'm planning or working with them in terms of advocating for that initiative. And not only that, but just like I did here today, I will continue to promote this, the issue of the benefit of cooperation, especially in the era of this climate change as well as increasing population. So I will continue lobbying or increasing the awareness of communities, not only in locally but also internationally at all platforms like this.
Yeah, that's a very wonderful question. And of course, even if we are talking about geopolitics, we are always affected and impacted, and we should contribute with one way or another. And for me, it is easy if you go, for example, in any database, scientific database, and type energy and conflicts. You will get thousands of papers. But if you look into energy and peace, very few papers that will show up. And you could do this search now. So what I'm trying to do is to change the narrative and the focus. And instead of, I mean, it's easy to connect energy to conflict, but people in today's world need solutions. How we can solve those issues. I mean, it is a key component of solving to understand the issue, but understanding the issue is one part of it. The other very important part is to solve it, right? So I'm trying through my work to mainly investigate how we can use natural resources, mainly energy, and could be water and other things, to build peace and partnership. So I'm trying to be part of the positive side and to contribute to that positive discussion, to that part of the solution. And inshallah, one day I will be a big scholar, and I may have my school of peace and cooperation and energy.
I think that is a wonderful notion to end this session on. Thank you so much. Yeah.